When I was starting, I was the bottleneck for absolutely everything, which is what happens when you start your own business. And my way was always brute force, just get it done. And so this other project, we actually refunded the client. We basically fired ourselves from the job. That was a really tough decision.
Because when we worked together, it was still all on you. And again, you had all these 8 players who could take more responsibility, but you were essentially bottlenecking from allowing them to do so.
And so I think you and I worked together to identify, where am I the most valuable to my own business? Where is my time adding the most value to this organization and therefore what I can offer?
When you text me that one day and said, not only because of the time you saved, but with that being a big contributor, you talked to clients more. You got deeper with them. Most of these are retainers, like 90K in retainers alone. Yeah. From people who already knew you.
Now I had to prioritize things that I've never really understood. I think you helped me bring clarity both on how to prioritize my time and how do I protect my brain space. I think we have been more judicious since my time working with you.
All right, so appreciate you. It's been a little bit of time since we were like, meeting every single week, right? So why don't we work backwards? Like first of all, Ultra Friends didn't even exist when we started working together. Yeah. So why don't you, first of all, for anyone watching this, say who you are, what Ultra Friends is, and what are you trying to change in the world?
Oh boy, that's a big question. Hi, I'm Kevin Rapp. I am the co-founder and chief creative officer of a design firm called Ultra Friends. So we are a creative agency that does everything from product and web design to branding to video content creation. But I think the thing that sets us apart from a lot of other design agencies is that we are very focused on building creative in systems to give brands more value for their investment in creative. We're pretty seasoned creative leaders that tend to focus on not just what makes something more aesthetically pleasing, but what actually drives results for businesses. And so we're trying to build an agency that is focused on how we can deliver impact through creative contributions.
Man, if you haven't practiced that, that's pretty solid. I like it. But how do you feel business is going, right? Because Ultra Friends has existed for a handful of months now. So where's it
at? It's been kind of amazing, honestly. When the business started, it was a Kevin Rapp Consulting, a very creatively named project. That was really just me trying to figure out what I want to do next, to be perfectly honest. I wasn't even sure I wanted to start my own business. I really just kind of started putting things together so that when I quit my job, I could find a way to make income. To be very honest, that was really what it was. And as I started to attract clients, as I started to get more work, I had to start building the scaffolding around it to kind of turn it into a big boy company rather than just, this LLC thing that I developed to just kind of find a way to do freelance work. And the company is scaled pretty significantly. We did, around $300,000 in revenue the first year, and we're now like triple that and continuing to grow. And I have joined forces with my business partner, Travis McCleary, who is another brilliant creative director. And the two of us have started to expand our offerings outside of what it was, which was mostly just video in the past. And now we're offering all sorts of other creative endeavors for our clients and building deeper, more meaningful relationships with those clients. And I think offering them significantly more value than where we were a year ago or 2 years ago. I think we're when I look at the health of business, like the revenue is going up, we're growing. There's lots of great things happening there, but I think the real hallmark of the growth and maturity of the business has been we have been offering so much more than we could offer a year ago because of the way that we have matured the business.
Right. Yeah. And you hit on a couple points there because that's really what we kind of at first, like you and I just started. I was basically through a mutual connection was like, hey, someone tells me you could save some time. Let's see
Yeah,
if I can help you do that. Right. But
totally.
the again, we're not going to follow any specific track, but something
Yeah,
I'm super bullish on and that I knew you were always an A player with was really twofold. Regardless of what mental state you were in, you
yeah,
could always crush these two things: attracting people who are really freaking talented to work for you,
yeah,
right? And then the other one is just how you interact with clients and how they feel after a conversation with you and that sort of stuff.
yeah,
So one of the we'll call it a result. You know, if anything, it was just I saved you some time so you could go do what you do really well.
yeah.
But when you text me that one day and said, "Hey, you know, because of the time, not only because of the time you saved, but with that being a big contributor, you talked to clients more. You got deeper with them. And then you sent my favorite message of the year, which is like, hey, most of these are retainers, like 90K in retainers alone
Yeah.
from people who already knew you. So like, how
Yeah.
did that work?
Yeah. There's a couple things in there. So when I was starting, I was the bottleneck for absolutely everything. Which is what happens when you start your own business. You are the finance department, you are operations, you are, marketing, you are business development, you are everything. And then you're the person who like does the actual work too, right? Like, so all of the things were kind of on my shoulders. And there are some of those things that should be on my shoulders because those are the things that I'm good at. And then there are some of those things that absolutely only should be on my shoulders if there is no other option. And so I think you and I work together to identify where am I the most valuable to my own business, not just to my clients, but to my own business. Where is my time adding the most value to this organization and therefore what I can offer to my clients? And that was something that I hadn't really thought about. I thought, well, I can do it, so I just will, rather than how can I be intentional about my time to make sure that I am focused on the things that really, really bring the most value. And that's how I've been able to focus my time on building and nurturing those relationships, spending that time with the clients so that I'm offering the most strategic recommendations that we can offer, and that I am leading the team of mostly freelance individuals that that can execute the work so that we are really meeting our clients' needs and we are really helping them build their businesses and helping them grow. So I always thought of myself as somebody who was good at prioritization,
Mm.
but I was good at prioritizing my own work in the area of expertise that I had. Now I had to prioritize things that I've never really understood how to prioritize it. And I think you helped bring clarity for me on where I should be prioritizing my time to help the business be healthy. And not just help the business be healthy, but help my brain be healthy, because this is a space that can wear you down very, very quickly if you aren't taking care of yourself. And I wasn't. I wasn't particularly taking care of myself well because I wasn't able to look at something and say, "Oh, I should build a system for that," or I should like delegate that responsibility, or something like that. I wasn't able to see where I could minimize my involvement in things that weren't as important as the core value that the business has to offer.
Sure.
And my brain wasn't doing great as a result. And so I think you helped me bring clarity both on how to prioritize my time and how to protect myself from over indexing on, well, I can do that, so I should.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about protecting yourself. What did it look like then versus now?
Yeah, I think protecting myself then looked like it was more fear-based. It was more, I was thinking about, oh, I don't know if we can spend that because the consistency of business is volatile. So I don't know if I want to outsource that or spend time on building the system. I've got to focus on just getting the work done, and I'll do all these other things to send out invoices or just manually do all of the operation side of things as how I know how to do it. Because I can just figure out how to do it my way, and my way was always brute force. just get it done. And so my view of protecting myself was thinking about like, okay, how do I protect the bottom line? And now I more think about how do I protect my brain space, and how do I protect the things that I have to offer that are essential for the business to run effectively.
Mhm.
And one of the things that is required for the business to run effectively is for me to not burn out. I mean, I'm not going to be able to run this business if I'm fried emotionally, if I'm not as effective as I can be. Those are things that are going to grind the business to a halt. And so I have spent more of my effort and energy to say, you know what? I don't need to take on this extra project, or I don't need to take on this extra responsibility. I can find ways to offload them, or just say, we're not going to take this because it's going to be an energy suck, and I need to put my effort into the things that are going to help the business and help me in the long term.
Sure. What's your process now? Because it seems like there's a lot of identification of what you say yes and no to. Like, how has that evolved recently?
Yeah. Honestly, there was a project recently where we screwed up. Honestly, we overbooked ourselves, and we looked at it and said, like, there are ways in which this is going to be tight, but I think this could lead to something big. And we overcommitted, and like on top of that, we overcommitted in a very time box. Like, it had to be these 2 weeks that we had to get it done, and I was taking off time at the very beginning of it. And so it was just this like perfect storm disaster where we had a very tight timeline. I was going to be out, and then when I got back, a couple of other projects like exploded in scale and in challenge. And so this other project, like, we dropped the ball on it. And so we actually refunded the client and said, we're actually not going to charge you for half of this work because we don't think we did our best. And like, here are the things that we think we did well, and we'll charge you for that. But these other areas we're not going to charge you for. And we basically fired ourselves from the job. And that was a really tough decision. There was so much of my perfectionist mentality that really made me want to go into, let's fix this relationship. Let's fix this. Let's make it work. But I also sensed that it was gonna really, really hit me hard, because there were other things that I had to take care of. And I didn't think that my brain was going to be able to accommodate everything that was happening at the same time. And so we said, let's cut it loose. And that was a really great learning experience for us. Number one, it was good for us to have the wherewithal to let it go. Because there were some discussions where we're like, okay, do we try to fix this? Do we, like, what can we do to fix it? And there were steps that we could have taken, but there was going to be a toll that came with that. And so now we are even more judicious than ever of saying, okay, even if this looks like a great client that could lead to a great relationship, that could lead to greater things, we also have to make sure that we are setting ourselves up to be able to serve those clients properly. Because something that could be the perfect opportunity might not be right for us right now. And being willing to be honest with ourselves on whether something is the right opportunity right now, and rather than just the right opportunity, has been something that's been kind of eye-opening for us and has helped us make decisions down the line. It was good to have to recognize where kind of like the points of failure are, so that we can even put some of these things that we had in practice of like, okay, is this the right relationship for us? Is this the right type of client? Is this the right type of project? Is this the right time for what we're doing? We've had a lot of those things to evaluate as projects came our way, but there were things that looked ideal that just the wrong timing can really, really be a challenge. So, yeah, I think we have been more judicious since my time working with you to be strategic about how we spend our time and what types of relationships we try to build and how we try to build them.
Yeah. Fair, which is interesting too, because when we worked together, it was still all on you. And again, you had all these A players. One of the recommendations was just like who's tailor made right now at the company to just who could take more responsibility, but you were essentially bottlenecking from allowing them to do so, right? Like that kind of thing. And now I'm hearing, because it's been a little bit since we like had a conversation like this,
Yeah.
I'm hearing a completely different like talk track. Everything is, we spoke about this, we dissected this, we blah blah blah. So like tell me more about like the team. Like how does the team feel, and how are you, what's your role?
Yeah, I mean, it's very different than it was a year ago. I had to learn to shift from, I am the bottleneck and the decision maker for a lot of things, to now I have a business partner, and what does that look like? And how do I navigate the fact that like I started this business and there are a lot of things that are starting with me that now a business partner is coming into? How do you navigate that so that he feels like an equal player in this? And there were a lot of complexities in terms of how do we make the transition from Kevin Rapp Consulting to Ultra Friends. And I think honestly, like the real thing was just a lot of honesty and transparency. I think just being very clear about this is what the next stage of this business looks like, and it's critical for it to be a partnership. And here's how we're going to set these decisions together to help it become greater than the sum of its parts. And I think something that's really, really critical for that is for me to let go of some of those responsibilities and to really identify where I need help and identify where I need to step away. Because I am a person who can naturally take on too much because I want to make sure that it's done right, or I want to make sure that it's just done. Like I'm willing to go the extra mile to make sure that things are taken care of. And so being able to take that overachiever mindset and setting it by the door, and realizing that I had people that I can trust, that I don't have to put everything on my shoulders just because I can carry the load, because there's times where I can't, and there are times especially where I'm encompassing a job that encompasses many jobs, some of which I'm very well equipped to do and some I'm not as well equipped to do. Being willing to expand this and let go of things and ask for help has been great for me to and great for the business to leverage all of the people around me and let them help because they want to. So yeah, it's been a very unique and interesting transition to go from, you know, this thing that I built to this thing that we're now building together, and recognizing how important these other people are and how much they can help me has been huge.
Yeah, which is also kind of amazing too, because you know, one of the things you said from the very beginning was, "Hey, I'd really like to explore kind of this personal branding thing. I have big ideas and opinions, and I would love to just dedicate more time to being creative for myself, not just Ultra Friends and all that." And I think just by you leaning into that these last couple of months, you've had a heck of a lot of interesting experiences and opportunities, like the public speaking thing and a whole bunch of others. You sent me the funniest video the other day. So, anyways, what you're an influencer now. So, like, what has kind of trusting these other people, because it seems a direct correlation of like freeing you up to do for stuff you always wanted to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, the building of the public persona of Kevin Rapp has been like an engine of the business. So it's always been something that's been like a requirement to market the business, but it's also kind of like taken a life of its own too. And it has led to speaking engagements, being like a resident expert in communities. It's led to podcasts. It's led to all sorts of crazy things that were like way more than I could have ever anticipated. And so I've had to like look at not just the potential of building the agency, which is also like something I never really truly anticipated being a thing that I'd be doing. But looking at all of these things together and saying like, all right, I have a lot of potential of what I can do, but I have limited time and limited bandwidth. So how do I want to be intentional with that time? How do I want to spend that time? And I sure as hell don't want to be writing invoices. Like I don't think that is like the way that I really want to be spending some of that precious time. And so yeah, working with Ultra Friends and figuring out, all right, here's how I'm going to be smarter about how I give feedback to artists. Because that was something that was a huge time box for me, is how do I communicate to these artists what I want? How can I streamline some of these processes so that I can take, you know, an hour of every day out or 2 hours of every day out to be able to devote to doing something else that I might want to explore and might want to dip my toe in, see how that is going to change my career trajectory or change the way that this personal brand thing grows. That's been crazy to be able to say, yeah, I've been able to devote time to doing this to see what that is going to look like. And those kinds of experiments are going to, I think, forever change like what my path forward as a professional looks like.
Yeah. What does your family notice these last handful of months?
I I think they've noticed like ups and downs, because like this is an up and down thing. I think they've noticed that like um I think they've noticed that I've been willing to put away the computer a little earlier than I used to. I think they've also noticed that. All right, let me start this one over, because this one's kind of tricky, because let me tell you what I think my family has experienced. So August, we had the biggest month we'd ever had. We like more than doubled some of our highest months that we'd ever had. And So it was one of the most crazy times that I've had as a professional. And I've had some pretty crazy times in my over my career. And that's when I saw myself hit a breaking point. And when I've hit breaking points before, it has taken a really, really long time for me to recover. And my family knows it as the times when I lose my words, when I'm unable to like even have much of a conversation after the end of the workday. And I hit one of those breaking points where I've had to identify, all right, I need to make some changes. I need to this is not sustainable is where I've hit at that point. And I think I finally had the tools to understand and process what that needed to look like. Because before I would have probably just shut down.
Yeah.
And so I think what my family probably noticed is that I had a really, really hard month that was really busy, that I had a lot to do. But I think they also recognized that I set up some boundaries so that I could protect myself and figure out how to support myself and bring myself out of those situations. Because it's one thing to have those boundaries when things are going well. It's another thing to actually execute on them when things are going in a challenging direction, and the ability to actually stick to those boundaries and stick to the way that you protect yourself when you actually genuinely really need to, rather than when you're just trying to protect yourself and when things are even keel. So I think they've probably noticed that I have I think they've noticed that I'm dealing with the pressures that can be really high stakes with a sense of understanding how to preserve myself through it in ways where I would have probably just shut down before.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because you in that personal story, you've identified like what I've just seen as a myth, right? It's the way people talk about their calendar, or they talk about, I'm going to buy this course or whatever. It's like, that's not a light switch. That doesn't mean you did the one thing and now it fixes. It's really, if anything, I'm hearing it's you, instead of building your foundation in like a mucky ditch, you're like getting it to sea level, and then you can continue to it's reps of just handling things better, right?
Yes. That's exactly what it is. And it's hard to identify and just say like, oh, like I set up this thing and everything was great. Not every month is great. Not every day is great. Not every week is great. But I feel like I have a better understanding and a better sense of self and better sense of where I am needed the most. And I'm able to protect that center so much more accurately because I've identified it so much better and so much clearer than I ever have before. If I don't know what I need to protect, I try to protect everything, and then therefore I protect nothing.
Yeah.
And so I am putting out so many little fires absolutely everywhere that at the end of the day, I'm absolutely exhausted. And now, like, on those really challenging days, I go, okay, these are the fires that I really critically need to take care of. These are things that I can have other people help. And these are things that can kind of burn a little bit. Let's be honest. These are things that I'm like, there's no structural damage if this thing looks a little singed. So let's let that burn. And then let's protect this core. And that self-awareness, that understanding is so critical to me having a healthier, more balanced life and work.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, everything you're saying there, it's like you have all these different cups, right? And for people who don't know you well, like 4 kids, play board games with them every night and that sort of stuff. I can only imagine, like, I mean, how 12 months ago, how present were you during board games? Like, was your brain like, could you on, because you probably could have compartmentalized a little bit, but I don't honestly know.
Not really. Like I could compartmentalize a little bit, but like I'm still like flipping through the phone. I'm still like I'm not there truly able to like enjoy that time as much as I should. And now I feel like I am much more like that's the center. That's
Yeah.
the center you got to protect.
Yeah.
And so those times have been a lot more meaningful because I'm able to recognize and cherish them as the things that need to be protected.
Yeah. And I'm so grateful that you're saying it the way you are, because it's, you know, if someone like wants coaching or they want to buy a course or whatever, I think they go into it reasonably so because they just don't know any better of, hey, if I execute this to the letter, I have a better life. And then that it's just a continuous upwards trajectory. And it's like, you know, the one week you told me, I think it probably would have been like the month before your crazy month of,
Yeah.
hey, I watched a movie in the middle of the day on a Thursday or something.
Yeah.
And great, that would have been one of your like 30, 35-hour weeks, maybe less, you know.
Yeah.
And then the following month is crazy. It's success that was kind of the precursor to it. But
Yep.
it's just, it really isn't about like a this or that. It's very much a just okay, here are, out of 10 things, here are 7 things I would keep, and here are 3 I would totally replace.
Yeah.
And then the next time, maybe it's 6 and 4, and then it's, you know, whatever. And you're just a living kind of proof of all that. So how do you, what areas do you still feel like you need to improve on? Because you've come so far. I mean, actually, honestly, when I look at it, Kevin, like in the last 12 months, you're kind of like rocket shippy. Like, you are not the norm, I would say.
Well, thank you,
But
buddy.
I'm still hearing a lot of things you want to work on. So like, what would be the ones, you know?
I think you know, like when I look at it, I still go, you know, there are things that I can still be better at being present in every single interaction, right? Like I'm still, that's, I mean, I think we all as humans are struggling with that right now. That is, let me think about that for a second. Okay. When things get really challenging for me, I can retreat into like the barrier, like how do I want to say it? Let me think about this for a second.
I love all this, by the way. Like, I don't want to edit any of this. I think
Okay,
it's
yeah.
good because you don't have to come up with a perfect answer. If
I don't have
anything, you're showing, yeah, we don't have these, because there is, you know, when we were working together, it's not like I didn't have my own stuff that I was trying to work through, like delivering value for you. You were one of the earlier people I worked with, right? And that kind of stuff. And it's so, my personal thing is I have a difficult time taking any credit for what you've done. The only thing I can say is like, you helped him at least. You said the one word I love that you've said this whole time, and you've said it several thousand times at this point. Obviously exaggerate. Identify.
Yeah.
Identify. That's the theme of us working together, is identification. It's because, did I give you more skills? No. Did I help you make more money? No.
Yeah.
Like, it was literally, all this stuff was inside your head, and you just, through your vulnerability, gave me the permission to start opening up those doors and saying, hey, you know this, right? And like, do you feel we can do something about it?
Well, I mean, to give you the credit that you will not give yourself, I think that is what good coaching is. It's not like training somebody to do something new that they never knew how to do. It's about saying like, oh, you have this thing inside yourself that you you can't quite put the pin on it yet. So let me help you emphasize those strengths, and let me help you identify where you have weaknesses and where you can push. I think that is the definition of really, really good coaching. And I think you really did help me with identifying those strengths and weaknesses. And like, I'll give you a really good example. Like, I came to you of like, I think I need a better process for invoicing. I think I need a better process for some of these administrative things that I don't want to be spending a lot of my time on. And you could have let it at that and just said, okay, here's a way to automate this. Here's a tool that can help you automate that, blah, 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 blah. But you did something different. Is you're like, okay, let me get into your Slack. Let me see how you communicate with the artist. Let me see how you communicate with your clients. Let me just start to see some of the patterns. And you were looking at the way that I was giving direction to the artist. And I typically type out like massive amounts of notes. And you were like, what if you just like did that as a Loom video instead? And I was like, oh, I'd never really thought about that. And so I started that process. And so instead of spending an hour to type up notes to say, here's kind of what I'm envisioning, here's the creative direction, here's how this should look, here's how it should move, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, I spent 5 minutes and just talked to the camera and said, here's what I'm envisioning, here's some things, here's some reference, and boom, sent off the link. And the artists were telling me that the direction was more clear. They understood it better because they got to see my expressions and see how I was talking about it, and then not just putting it into wording that could have been harder to interpret. But it was saving me time. So it was like faster and better. And that was just like, okay, great. Every time I'm kicking off a project or I'm giving notes, I'm saving myself time and making my direction more clear. And that had nothing to do with invoices, which was the problem that I was seeing as a bottleneck, right? It had nothing to do with my administrative efforts. It had to do with the way I was communicating, with the way I was spending my time to do core aspects of my job. And so you helped me identify a lot of little things like this that saved me little bits of time every day that add up and add up and add up. And now I can look back and say, like, yeah, the business is growing significantly. I've been able to get more engagements or more speaking appearances or things like that. And I think that has been a huge part of that success has been you helping me identify ways in which I can utilize my time better.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I appreciate you saying that, of course. And that was always, I shouldn't say that was always the goal, because you're right. Yeah. I was like, come in to do systems. And then I started working on the systems. I think it was even a couple weeks in. Yeah. And the next meeting, I was just like, Kevin, I don't want to do any of this. I don't think this is what you need. Yeah. Right. And then it was getting in the Slack, and a couple weeks later, you could definitely tell something was happening there. But, yeah, I think the coolest thing to me of being able to work with you, and I've always been like super bullish on this because we're buddies as well, is just like, how you can always tell what someone's got before they can. Like, I know you're talented, but your potential would just like ooze out in every meeting and all this sort of stuff. And I just like made it my internal mission of like, how do you get this guy to do more of what he wants to do? Because when he does stuff he wants to do, it's incredible. Like, you were giddy about showing me the X-Men related slide decks you were creating. And then you go, obviously it's the whole virality thing you and I don't really subscribe to, but you did go viral because of one, how did you go viral? You talked about your core belief, which was
don't pitch for free.
Exactly. And you said that to me in how many meetings? And then you just put it online and it goes insane. Yeah. Didn't you get a speaking engagement because of that?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I like that had taken off like more than 10 times bigger than the highest performing thing I'd ever done. I had like people from some of the biggest ad agencies in the world like following me or like chiming in on the conversation. It was crazy to see the way in which that took off. It's funny, my business partner was like, yeah, I was in this design channel with all these like high level designers from like a lot of the world's biggest brands, and one of them posted that video clip of you as like something that he loved, and is like, yeah, that's my business partner. Like it was just so funny that thing is still like being something that is entering the conversation in the way that I navigate the world today. So it was, yeah, like I never make something with the intent of like, oh, I want this to go viral. I want this to be like a real conversation starter or anything like that. It's like I'm sharing the way that I view this work and what I think creatives should know about it, or what I think marketers and other people should know about how creatives impact business.
Mm-hmm.
And having the ability to really hone in on what is the heart of that story has been one of the most exciting aspects of this new wild career journey that I'm on. I've told so many different brands' stories over the past 20 years.
Yeah.
To figure out how to tell my own has been one of the most creatively fulfilling things that I've ever done. Because it is like me really taking my own experience and figuring out how I want to share the value of creative people and the skills that they bring to the table. It's a story that I think is really important and really undervalued. And so I think part of this whole identification process has been really getting clearer and clearer and clearer about what my story is and how I want to show up and navigate the world. And I think that these stories are resonating with people is because it is very honest. It is very true to the way that I have seen creative be devalued throughout my career. And I think a lot of creative people feel it too.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that I can talk about it, the more that I'm getting messages from people like, yeah, I made an extra 60,000 this year because of like some of this advice that you told me, and you helped me like figure out how I can advocate for myself. And those are things that have been like really meaningful to me, to be able to help other people recognize their value too. So it's just been really, really cool to find the heart of that story and to see it resonate with other people and see them do things with it that have empowered them.
Man, that that gives me freaking feels, dude, because literally I'll just say this. So as I've been creating Autonomy Agency and it's about to launch and these sorts of things, I feel very similar to you in that it's all of this just working your ass off for years and years and like being towards the top of your industry, but still not knowing who you are.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of, falling into what I'm creating now, it's almost like it speaks through me. It's not, I don't know. I can't even, it's hard to describe because it's like such passion, but I've been saying this thing lately that just resonates with me personally. If other people don't resonate with it, it's fine. But you are like the epitome of, you have to feel good to do good.
Yeah, 100%.
Because what you just said there is like, when you could identify this doesn't feel good, and what if I made a couple changes? Look what's happening, right? And like all of the skills you had were so strong, they just weren't being fully utilized. And now a random video, you can say, I don't pitch for free, and you give a ton of value all over the place, right? Whatever it was that person attached to, you help them feel good, and then the do good is they make 60,000 more. It's like that is what I'm in love with us working together is because of the trickle down stuff, right?
Yep.
And like those people will never know who I am, and I love that because they know who you are and you're helping them, and that matters.
Yep.
Right. So we always get like super passionate and philosophical on these by the end. It's like right at the 45-minute mark every time.
Every time you can count on it.
But let's, I mean, that was already super positive, but we've done so much reflection. Like now that it's just kind of, it has been super fast for you. It's really been, you know, like the last 8-9 months is all of this stuff has taken off. So what is at this now breakneck pace or just new norm? Like what does the future look like for you? What does the next 12 months look like?
Yeah, I think the next 12 months look like what is the scaffolding that supports the growth? You know what I mean? As we start to look at the fluctuations and volatility of what growth looks like in months that go like crazy high, but like, or still really high, or like trying to figure out what is the infrastructure that is needed to be built to sustain the momentum and to build this business healthily. I have no interest in building the fastest growing agency in the world, and neither does my business partner. That is not what we are here for. So we're going to look at this and say, okay, what has been going well? What has been challenging? What do we need to build in terms of an infrastructure in order to sustain us and keep us living the lifestyle that we want to live while still being able to do the work that we want to do. I think once we start to really get some of this work out there that we've been working on, I think it's going to bring in a lot more business because I think people are going to start to see more of what we can do. So I think we're going to have to quickly get to a position of setting up sustainability of how we organize and structure the business. I think that's what the next 12 months looks like. It's we've started to see what huge growth looks like. What is sustainability and operationalization of, I probably just made up a word. What does operationalizing what we are now like deciding what the business is and now understanding what the value of what we do is, how do we situate that? Like, do we start hiring people? Is that a thing that we do? That might be. Or do we start bringing in some producers to help manage things so that we can stay in higher level on creative direction and strategy and have somebody else take on more of the project management, because now we're doing both and we split between them. So I think there are a couple of key decisions that are going to look like, all right, once again, we identified what got us to here, what's going to take us to that next level, what infrastructure do we need to build to, again, protect the core of what we do the best and give us more room to breathe and keep the business running as smoothly as possible. So that's what I see over the next 12 months is what does the sustainable architecture of the business really truly look like? Yeah,
which is arguably harder than growing. What about you personally? Let's end on you. How are you gonna make sure you continue to get this super powerful message out from just your personal point of view?
Yeah, man, it's been kind of amazing to see how many people have resonated with it, and so it's been an interesting challenge to figure out how do I keep building for this message for the people that I think need to hear it, for the other creatives who, like me, have been underpaid and undervalued throughout their career. How do I help them understand the value of what they do and give them the motivation to advocate for themselves? while also like talking about this agency that we're building and keep the momentum of going in that, because that's actually where the money is that will allow me to be able to communicate this message.
Yeah.
So it's been interesting strategically to try and balance both of those things to ensure that I have the ability to do both. Because right now it's very necessary for both of those things to sustain the other. And so I think over time it's going to be, okay, can I find a way to make this something that I can also monetize so that I can like split my focus between them a little bit more cleanly? Or do I continue, funneling more work to the business and then continuing to build this? And I don't have the true, honest answer to that yet. It's still too early for me to be able to tell. But I think what I'm going to do is continue to give myself the room to explore different directions and different ways in which I can communicate this message.
Mm-hmm.
Continue to give myself the space to say, okay, yeah, this is a new opportunity, a new place where I can try and figure out how to play in it, and see what comes of it. I think I have really discovered over the past 2 years since I went on my own that this has really been an opportunity for me to define my own career path. And I didn't really recognize how much opportunity I truly had to be able to build that and forge that for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And the fruits of that labor have really paid off and exploded over the past couple of months. And now I'm really seeing just how many directions I can go with it. And so I think I'm in this experimentation phase of what does that look like? How can what's the way I can scale it? How do I want to scale it? And I'm going to keep trying things and figure out what makes me feel good about the way I'm doing it, and scale up the things that are working and scale down the things that aren't. So I'm just going to continue to give myself the room to experiment.
Nice. I love it. Yeah. It's the ability to be creative requires that space. And so
Yeah.
it's awesome to see how far you've come, and I can't thank you enough for chatting with me as always.
You, buddy.
Just like hearing what you have to say. You know what I mean?
Well, thank you, my friend. Thank you.
Yeah. So, well, let's do this again, not recorded and just hang, but I appreciate you immensely. Thank you so much, buddy.
Well, I appreciate you right back, buddy. I think our time together has been incredibly invaluable for me to be able to understand myself in ways that I hadn't articulated as a business owner. I think I had articulated what my value was when I was an employee. I think I had started to uncover what my value was in the sensibility of, okay, this is the role I fill in this job, and here's how that creates business value for a company. When it translates over to, okay, but now I'm a business owner and I have to do all of these new things that I've never done before, I found that same value wasn't transferable. Like, there are parts of that when I'm selling the work where I can talk about the skills that I bring to the table, and sure, that's transferable. But when it comes to figuring out finance and operations and how a business is going to run, it's not the same thing, especially when it's like a sole business that then becomes a partnership that I have to figure out what my roles and responsibilities look like as the business changes and evolves. So working with you, really getting to understand where I needed to put my energy has really, really, really changed the business for the better, because I have a more clear understanding of not how to prioritize my workload, but how to prioritize the way that my life and work intersect more holistically. And I think that was a critical balance that was missing for me. And to be able to have more of a North Star to know what to move towards has helped me in decisions both big and small for the business and for the way that that business plays into the role of my life and with my family.
Oh, man. Well, yeah, I can't thank you enough for you always say things in such an eloquent way, and I appreciate it. And I don't know if operationalized is a new word or not, or however you said it. But
I think the way I said it was something much worse and more butchered English than that. But
I think we're just trying to sound highbrow. We're just trying to look cooler than I got a public education. I don't know about you. So
I did too.
But man, yeah, Kevin the Kevin Rapp Consulting versus Kevin the Ultra Friends family man, impacting a lot of people's lives. It's been really, really fun to see. So what's really cool to me is like, this is still just the beginning. You're still figuring it out. That's what's really cool.
2 years in, baby. Like I mean, we're still we're barely speaking full sentences at this point as in our toddler stages. Like we're still waddling around the floor. There's still so much.
Yeah. Well, I will encourage anybody who can get to know you to do that, and then of course check out your work as well, which is phenomenal. But until the next time, buddy, I can't thank you enough.
Right back at you, my friend. Thank you.
See ya.